So some quick definitions. Marketing attribution, it's just identifying the specific actions that a consumer takes to learn about your product. We don't need to spend too much time on that. Cookies are packages of data from a website that can be stored within a web browser to be used at a later time. Interesting fact about cookies, they were invented by a Netscape engineer in 1994. And when he invented them, he only wanted them to be first-party cookies. So he deliberately built them in a way that it would just be first-party. Advertisers, though, pretty clever. Within 2 years, they'd figured out a workaround and made them third-party cookies, and then that's where that revolution moved forward. We're going to be talking about marketing efficiency rating, or sometimes it's called blended ROAS. I know within our agency, we talk about blended ROAS. So that's looking at your total revenue divided by your total ad spend for a month, as opposed to looking at the attribution window that a particular ad platform or that someone in your team likes to use. If you're running multiple channels, blended really needs to be something you're looking at more closely. And why you need to know this stuff is because marketers are about to go back in time. So I'd just like you guys to be prepared for the sort of skills you need to be looking for in marketers, either currently within your team or anyone you're looking to bring on. Now, this slide, I moved into digital marketing in 2012. So I've been in marketing for 20-ish years. I was buying AdWords for 6 cents a click back in 2003, 2004. I was buying banner ads back then. I moved full-time into digital, though, in 2012. And we used to laugh about this quote. We'd show it to audiences and go, hey, they never used to know what their advertising spend does. But now we do, because we've got Google Analytics, we've got last-click attribution, we've got the answer. Obviously, it's a bit murkier than that, and it's gotten murkier and murkier on that as more and more channels and platforms have come in to play. So this is really relevant. But what's really important to understand is that attribution, it seems like a buzzword that's been, especially the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, as you've got all these software companies who are trying to explain this is the answer. Guess what? There is no one definitive answer. You've got, obviously, as I said, the ad platforms have got their own default attribution windows that they'd like you to go by. Marketers are going to lean towards the attribution that potentially makes their channel look a bit stronger. But it's been around for a long time. It's not a new thing. If we look at the timeline of attribution, back in the 1950s to the 1970s, we had marketing mix models. So this was, if you think about the sort of advertising and marketing that was done back then, you've got traditional TV, print, you've got direct mail, you've got those sorts of channels. What the marketing mix models did was basically surveys, looking back. So they might run some ad campaigns, look back over 3 months of ad campaigns, collate all that data, and then make some decisions for their next ad spend, right? So that's a kind of where it started, which channels are working, which aren't. It's quite anecdotal, it's quite limited. If we look to the 1980s and 1990s, this is when computers started to come into it. So you've got, a bit more sophistication to the way attribution is being measured. You've got big data coming in. So this is where the likes of Nielsen and some of the other massive big macro surveys start to come into play. So marketers have got more numbers to work with, but it wasn't quite at that point where we got when we moved online, which presented though some strengths to look back on, because the marketers back then, they didn't have as many data points to be able to pinpoint those sales back to. So the best marketers pre-internet were curious, they were brave, they were not afraid to try new channels out. They didn't have all the data and all the calculations that we have these days. It was literally try it and then let's historically look back at it. They didn't have real-time attribution, anything like that. Experimental, creative, innovative. Agile is the word that I keep on coming back to. Like, really great marketers in the past were very creative people. From the 2010s on through to like just recently, there was this massive big push towards database marketers, almost like scientists, living in spreadsheets and algorithms and all that sort of thing. But where did the creativity go? The creativity in marketing has always been a big propelling aspect, which has helped marketers connect with customers. But through the kind of digital age, it was lost. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a really important skill moving forward. And that agility to be able to think creatively, to be able to think outside the channel that we're used to using, is what's going to be super important moving forward with your marketing team. Because 2000s to 2012, cookies started to become a lot more prevalent. they were, ideally they were there just to improve UX on a particular site, but obviously advertisers got good at leveraging that further. But 2012 to 2020, this is like the golden age for digital marketers. You've got cookies everywhere. Facebook goes all in on mobile in 2012. E-commerce takes that big, sharp upward trend at that point as well. And if you're a ROAS-based Facebook marketer, this is where you were running a really, really simple funnel. You're putting $1 in, you're getting 10, 20 bucks back, and you look like a genius. And sure, a lot of those marketers were doing really good work. A lot of them were just following the numbers. They weren't super creative. They weren't super innovative. So what I'd like you to think about is, as we move forward, 2020, Apple doesn't like cookies anymore. That's a big thing, obviously. Don't need to go into that too much. 2023, Google keeps on pushing this date back because they're trying to hold on to that. They're basically just trying to help all of these data-based, digital, really statistics-based marketers catch up and get themselves to a position where they can still spend a lot of their money on Google Ads. But it's looking like 2023, that'll be done. But basically what I'm saying is cookies, they've been the magic bullet, and that magic bullet is getting taken away. So decisions are going to be based a lot more on than just data moving forward. Data is always going to be important, but the data is not always 100% correct. If your attribution window, your ad platform is telling you a certain thing, but those numbers are off because of your experience, because of your understanding of your customers, because the numbers are just off. Sometimes you get that when you're looking through and you can see it's saying that this channel is not working, but I know it's working. I know that, I know that people have not stopped using that channel just because the reporting is saying that they're not. Because the thing is, eMarketer just last week projected $1 trillion in e-com spend next year, which is almost 10% growth on 2021. So a big spike through COVID, but it's still growing really, really sharply, online spend. Now, I mentioned Facebook did help propel e-com. As they've removed the access to third-party cookies, did it reduce Meta's relevance completely? So the narrative going around, has been that, you rewind to 2020, that's when iOS 14. iOS 14 was the big one, where cookies are out. You no longer have that opportunity to be able to follow your customers on Apple devices. Facebook, by 2021, Q1, changed the attribution window. So they used to have, if you think about those ROAS numbers, if you talk to a marketer who was marketing 2017 and they're telling you they put $1 in and they were getting $30, $40 back every single time, the attribution window back then was impression, and then within a 28-day period, a sale. It's a pretty big window to try to make it look like that channel worked really, really well. From Q1 2021, it moved from not an impression, so to see it in the feed, but a click through a 7-day window to buy. So much tighter, much more accurate. At that point, thousands, maybe millions, I don't know, of businesses looked at the new numbers. They were running these ads for years. The numbers looked amazing. All of a sudden, the numbers don't look so good. So they pulled their Facebook spend. And it looked bad. It looked terrible. Who was running ads on Facebook and Instagram around that time? End of 2020, start of 2021. Yes. The numbers, they wouldn't have looked great over that period. But did you feel that your customers stopped using Facebook and Instagram? Of course not. The numbers just weren't showing it. So if we look at 14.5 was the most recent update to iOS. If we look at the impact on Facebook reported ROAS from iOS 14.5, which was last year, not the original 14. So the numbers here, using Facebook's reporting, pre-iOS, 2.13. So there's already been a dip because we're in 14.5. Post-iOS, it came down to 1.42 via the platform itself. It's a drop of 33%. That's why if you're an agency, your clients are going, stop spending on Instagram. It's just not working anymore. It used to work, doesn't work anymore. We're making 33% less dollars. But, that's, when you look at it from a blended ROAS perspective, you're running a bunch of channels, a bunch of campaigns off a range of channels. You're looking at total dollars in versus total dollars out. Then it looks a little bit different. Pre-iOS, the marketing efficiency rating, 6.92 multiplier. Every dollar, $7 back. Post-iOS, 6.53. It's a drop of just 5%, 5.67%. This is where you step outside the ad platform. You have savvier marketers who understand that, no, people didn't stop using Instagram. They just changed the way they reported on it. The numbers show that there was a tiny drop, a little bit, but not the 33% that everyone was worried about. So the reporting changed, but if you're running it properly, the performance didn't. And if there's people in this room who are running it properly, they'd know it didn't. We had clients who jumped up and down. We had to pull it and sales went down. You pop it back in, sales go back up. So it's having that understanding of using your gut as a strong marketer, not just an attribution, a data-based marketer, but a strong marketer who understands the customer and understands the market. This is what you really need to be looking for in your own team, and then externally as you start to grow that team. Now, specific to Meta, I'm sure you guys are probably across this, but just to help kind of help you keep your Meta campaigns running efficiently, make sure your domain is verified in Facebook Business Manager. Aggregated events management is really important. Obviously, the conversion API, I'm sure you guys are across that, but also establishing a historical attribution benchmark. So remembering that the attribution window changed from that 1-day impression to 30 days to 1-day click to 7 days. You can use something like Supermetrics to standardize that and then look at, okay, well, what is our actual attribution benchmark for this channel? In the closing slides, if anyone wants a copy of this afterwards, I've got my references. One of the references has a Supermetrics spreadsheet where you can actually pull that out, plug all your data in. So just hit me up afterwards. Okay, so that's nice, but so what? Cool, you've told us a lot of stuff that we kind of know. I guess the thing is, great talent is really, really hard to find. There's, really, really good talent is probably not looking for a job. If they are looking for a job, the demands quite rightfully can be quite high. But what are you looking for? What am I looking for? So in the last 3 months, I've screened over 200 candidates. I've shortlisted and interviewed 20, and I've hired 5, 6, I've hired 7 now. Yeah. And the common traits that I'm looking for when I'm going through this interview process. Firstly, I'm looking for experience across a range of brands and customer personas. I want someone who can think about that word I came up with before, agility. I need someone who can step outside their passion, step outside what they're used to, and put themselves in the mind of different types of customers and build campaigns. Because yes, you might have one product, but if you develop a new product, if you find that there's a new market for your product, which is quite different to what you've got now, you want someone who can be agile and can draw on that experience. There's a book called Range by Brian or David Epstein, but he talks a lot around how a generalist, someone who's lived a wide and varied life, can bring so much more to the table. It's so relevant for marketers as well. They understand best practice, but they're confident enough to freestyle. There was someone here yesterday who talked about best practice, and I smiled when he said it because I've got this literally in my presentation. Best practice, if you're a marketer, is what everyone else is doing. That's great. If you're an innovative marketer, okay, cool. I need to understand, the structures which have proven to get results, but the best marketers are stepping outside of that structure as well. But they need to understand best practice first, and they need to know when and where to freestyle. It's a balancing act. We've probably all worked with marketers who freestyle just a little bit too much. So it's trying to find the people who can do that within the realms of little experimental campaigns to the side, of testing 1, 2 variants, not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. They don't blindly follow the data. So they're not the ones who saw their Facebook attribution change and just pulled that spend because it's not making them money. They're thinking more laterally. They're thinking more about their customers and the way that their customers are purchasing. They ask lots and lots of questions. Now, when I'm going through the hiring process, we've got a 4-stage process. One of those stages is a technical quiz where we provide that to the candidate. They come back to us and they present their answers. That's great. The ones who would refuse to fill it in before they got a chance to at least call me and get clarity on all of those questions, they were the ones that I was more impressed with because they question everything. They don't just blindly go, okay, I really need this job. I better fill this in. They wanted more clarity, and the questions were, a little bit deliberately written, a bit ambiguously, so they would question it. They've generated results from Meta post iOS 14. I think this is like the number of marketers who literally in their resume would show me result or would like spruik about results where they were able to get 15, 20, 30, 40 times ROAS for campaigns. When I questioned them on when those campaigns were run, and they were run in 2017, 18, 19. They need to be able to show that post 2021, 22, they've run, for my needs, they've run multi-channel. They understand that the landscape has changed, and they're not just leaning back on their resume from when it wasn't relevant anymore. They talk blended ROAS because that is the real key, that they understand people don't live in one channel. Hockey assists. For those who live in Google Analytics, there's that assisted conversions. Conversions on the left-hand side, assisted conversions, that view, we're in there every day. Because if you're running a number of channels, what you're looking for is the colors that populate that particular image again and again. If you're seeing paid search just keeps on showing up 2-3 times in each of those conversions, those assisted conversions, and making up a big chunk of your overall sales, then great. All the other attribution windows might not show paid searches but doing really well, but we can see here that it's contributing a lot. It's color-coded, it's really easy to look at. I want my marketers to be looking for that or to already know it's there. They're just naturally curious and experiment-focused. I want to hear about platforms. Like, compared to most of the people I hire, I'm pretty old. Like, I don't know a lot of the younger the newer platforms potentially that are out there. I want them coming to me with ideas. I want to hear about a campaign they tried on Nextdoor or something which bombed, but they learnt this. Like, I don't care so much about whether it worked or didn't work. I just want to know that they're thinking outside the square. Outside of every client call, I'd love them to come to me and be talking about, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? Experiment focused. This is a bonus, but man, it makes a difference. If they've spent their own dollar on ad spend, they respect that dollar. That's not to say that if you've only ever worked agency, you can't do it well, but there's just, I don't know, there's something in that for me personally. If they've been able to build something, spend their own money on ads, tested it, then when they've got, your money, your client's money, there's just a different lens that they look at it through. So that's a bonus for me. So to sum it up, that's basically the summary of what I've just gone through. Creative thinkers, broad range, they're data-driven but not obsessed. Bonus points if they've owned their own business or invested in ad spend themselves. Cool. That was a pretty quick presentation because I am conscious that we are short on time. That is a few people that helped me with this. One of John's colleagues, actually, Erin, helped me sort of tie this together with a presentation I saw of hers. And then those resources and that spreadsheet are all there. So if you'd like this, just hit me up afterwards. Any questions on how to spot a good/great marketer in 2022? I've seen a few nods and people taking photos and taking notes, but I get that it's late in the day as well. Nope? Cool. Okay, hit me up in person, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. If you've got any questions, if you want a copy of this presentation, shoot me an email. It's probably the best method. And that is